guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Michelle N. Johnson, and this is Fighting Fiercely, the space where we educate, enlighten, and empower about all things endometriosis. On today's episode, you guys, I am super excited about the topic that we are going to discuss. It is revolving around a new endometriosis platform for legitimately vetting endometriosis specialist, which is something that we have not had until now. And I think it's something that is going to actually revolutionize and really change for the better our standard of care and how we go about choosing specialist to perform our surgeries and to lay out our plans for care. So let's get into it. So you guys, last week, myself along with several other endometriosis advocates were invited by the Endometriosis Summit and the Center for Endometriosis Care to take part in a live webinar to discuss this new platform called icarebetter, which is a new tool for vetting endometriosis specialists. And what is so exciting about this platform is that, as you guys know, up until now, there really has been no real way, right, to vet or to choose excision specialists other than primarily word of mouth from other people who have used this particular surgeon and like anecdotal evidence and testimonial stories, right? And of course, there are some social media groups and platforms that do have a list of some sorts, but it hasn't really been any established criteria for those particular lists. And I won't say any names or call the groups out, but if you guys are heavily involved in any of the groups on social media, you know which one I am talking about. People often refer people to this group as a means of choosing a true endo specialist. And the issue that I have with that in terms of calling it the only place for a true endo specialist list is a couple of reasons. Number one, there's no established criteria for those doctors on the list other than, I don't want to say preferential treatment, but other than treatment or knowledge by the admins of those groups. And the other thing, that the biggest issue that I have is that while the specialists on the list, are good, and they are people who dedicate their work to endometriosis, not every endometriosis specialist is on that list, number one. And number two is, even though a doctor is a specialist, right, we all know that they may not be a good fit for you. And so people within that group are not allowed to speak of unpleasant experiences or speak to treatments that they had with particular doctors that may not have fared very well. And so if you're not giving 5-star reviews or, all rainbow and unicorn ratings, as I like to call them, you're not allowed to post or speak or have your voice added to that particular group. And so in my opinion, this is just my opinion, you guys don't have to agree, but that provides a rather biased look, right? It doesn't provide a comprehensive picture of people's experiences with these doctors. And there isn't really a lot of information given in terms of background and schooling and specialty work to any in-depth degree. And again, that's totally my opinion. And even with the endo specialist map that I have recommended to many of you guys, it just kind of lists the doctors as they are throughout the state, but it doesn't really give any in-depth information. And so this new platform, icarebetter, is seeking to change all of that. And so it was an amazing webinar, and I was taking copious notes throughout the process, throughout the webinar. And so I just wanted to share with you some of my notes and kind of summarize for you guys what this platform is, how it's going to change the standard of care for us, and why you, as both a patient and an advocate, would want to get involved with this system and learn more about it. So let's go. So a little bit of background information first. So the icarebetter platform was put together by Dr. Saeed Galomi. He is a doctor and he is an MBA, and he also holds an MS in digital technology. He's the founder and CEO of the icarebetter system. And so this is someone who is a medical doctor. He's combining his expertise as a medical doctor along with his expertise in digital technology to create this platform. Some of the other people that was on the webinar who are a part of like the advisory committee, and if I'm not mistaken, the board with this group as well. Again, it's Sally Sorrell was on the call from the Endometriosis Summit, and again, Heather HG, you guys have seen her as part of the Center for Endometriosis Care. And so the primary purpose of this new platform is to help patients find endometriosis specialists. It's fairly straightforward. It is patient-centered. It is patient-focused, which is really, really important because, as a lot of you guys know, especially during this year with a lot of the events and things in different states that were being planned for the Endo March before the pandemic hit, a lot of us were disappointed to find that a lot of these big organizations and foundations that we have followed and shared as resources, we found that they have had relationship or financial ties to big pharma, and sometimes that can kind of skew your focus and skew your intent. And so the sole purpose of this platform is to help patients find endometriosis experts. And Dr. Galomi wanted to find a way to seek out efficient excision specialists, right? And he felt that there was missing a need in the endo community, the need for a trusted source of doctors. Let me go back a little bit. Not that the need wasn't there, right? The need has been there for a very long time, but there wasn't anything to fill that need, I should say, for a trusted source of doctors. And so he decided to create that platform to fill that need. And so what I really, really like is that they gave full transparency and financial disclosure, that the company was founded by Dr. Galomi, his friends, his family, trusted board members, and that there is absolutely no financial interest or relationship with any pharmaceutical companies. And so that was really, really, really important right out of the gate for me. Again, the goals are to help the patients find the right treatment plan and the right doctor by, number one, assessing exactly what it is the experts can provide, right? Because we know that even with the lists that are floating around now, these experts, they have varying levels of expertise, right? Some people rave about them. Some people have had very not so good experiences with them. And so they really seek with this platform to assess what experts can provide, and they want to educate the patients on everything that they will need in finding an expert specialist regarding both long and short-term goals. And that's really very important because I know, speaking with my own personal experience, once I received my diagnosis of endometriosis and then later adenomyosis, like, many doctors wanted to jump right to hysterectomy. And it's like, well, wait a minute, you guys, first of all, there's a whole myriad of treatment plans in between there, right? And nobody really asked me what were my goals. Did I even want to have children? What were my goals in wanting management in the short term? What were my long-term goals? And so the fact that this is a component of this platform was very intriguing to me. So the goal of wanting to help patients receive the right treatment and the right doctor, along with a thorough assessment of what a doctor can provide, then being put together in order to connect the right patient with the right doctor, is fundamentally what's at the core of this program. And I want to share some stats with you guys that they talked about why this is so important and why this platform is so necessary. So one of the things that the doctor talked about was why diagnosis is often delayed. We know that there can be anywhere from an 8 to 12 year delay in adequate diagnosis in endometriosis patients, and sometimes even longer. And so before diagnosis, or post-diagnosis, he said that endometriosis patients on average cost the cost for care is about $72,007 versus non-endo patients, which hover around $4,577. Post-diagnosis for patients without endo, once they receive a diagnosis, that cost for non-endo patients only increased to about $4,733, whereas with endometriosis patients, that cost jumps to $16,573. Okay, and so during a case study, I believe if my numbers are right here, looking at 8 million patients, before diagnosis, incremental costs per year come up to $10,002 per year, incremental cost of health care, in addition to other costs of taking into account of things like loss of work, loss of wages, things of that nature, an additional $2,132. Okay. What does all of that mean? Is that over time, looking at 8 million patients, the incremental cost of treating endometriosis jumps after diagnosis to about $80 billion. And an additional supplemental cost of, loss of income, things like that, another $17 billion. So what does all of these numbers mean? Basically means that when you're diagnosed with endometriosis, your cost of care jumps so astronomically that healthcare insurances are disincentivized to diagnose early, is what that means. So your average cost increases by $10,000 post-diagnosis. So insurers don't want to pay that out. Insurers don't want to pay that out. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. And so it becomes a never-ending cycle. So healthcare payers disincentivizes you to diagnose early. You get into this cycle of step therapy and fail first treatments. And this ultimately results in about 62% of endometriosis patients needing repeat surgeries, because excision is not the first step in being sought out, because it's basically not financially pretty. It's not financially lucrative, right, to diagnose you right away. Some other statistics that he talked about is that which we've heard this one before, is that about 10% of endometriosis of women or people across the U.S. has endometriosis. He said that there's an average of new cases of endometriosis in the U.S. alone of about 200,000 per year. Okay, so think about this. Back when I got diagnosed in 2009, the number that they were saying is endometriosis affects 176 million women, girls within the, across the world. About, I think 5 million was the number for in the US and Canada. If there's an average of 200,000 cases per year, and I've been advocating now for 11 years, and 178 number was the number 11 years ago, we're well into over about 200 million women, girls, people having endometriosis. About 69% of those patients will go on to have some sort of surgery for endometriosis within the first year of diagnosis. 1 in 5 of those women have hysterectomy, boom, right out of the gate. Also, he noted that endometriosis is actually the leading cause for hysterectomy patients in the United States. And again, of those patients, 62% of those go on to have repeat surgery, and that endometriosis is the third cause of gynecological hospitalizations in the United States. So what does all of this even mean, right? Why is all of this important in relation to the platform? Well, one of the biggest reasons that endometriosis is not treated effectively is because there's no definitive way to find the right surgeons for patients to be treated properly. He notes that most people are referred out to an OB-GYN. And as we know, we've talked about this a lot in the community. Regular OB-GYNs, their focus is on babies, right? Childbirth. They're not inclined or educated enough to expertly treat endometriosis. Sometimes you may be referred to a fertility specialist. I know people have been referred to an endocrinologist sometimes, but those are typically part of a surgical team, but not usually, the specialist across the board, right? And so patients are left in the dark regarding the skills, the capability of the provider. And as I mentioned before, they're left, to word of mouth and just, looking up a Google with a basic biography, not really getting any pertinent information as is relative to their unique experience. So enter the eye care system, the icarebetter system. What I love about this system is that they do a double-blinded video vetting process. So what the heck does that mean? What that means is that surgeons who wish to be added to this platform as an expert surgeon, they have to submit videos of their work performing endometriosis surgeries. So let me back up just a little bit. So there's several parts to the application process. So there's a basic background, which talks about, their education, their fellowships, the volume of endometriosis surgeries that they've done or do typically in a year. If they talk about their philosophy of treatment, what is their approach to care? Is it comprehensive? Do they have a team for deep infiltrating endometriosis in areas that they perhaps are not well versed in? So you've got to get all of this background information first. And then secondly, they have to submit unedited videos. That's important. So they can't just, pretty up the videos to show their best work, right? But they submit videos. So for example, they will submit a video of, say, doing a basic pelvic excision. And then they have to answer questions about that surgery. So, for example, they have to identify how the lesions are being treated, what method are they using. They ask about the integrity of bowel tissue during the surgery. How do they preserve that? How do you preserve the ovaries and tubes? How do you control bleeding? How do you go about dissecting adhesions and preserving vital organs, all of that type of information. And then they have a series of questions that they have to answer in relation to the video. And the video is experts being vetted by other experts. So there are a team of other experts that are viewing these videos. And so there's a whole scoring criteria involved. And if you rate a 7 or higher, then you've passed, and then you are, enter into the platform. If your work hovers about a 6 or so, or which would be around average, then you would be requested to submit more videos for further evaluation. And this is one of my favorite parts. If you score below a 6, what they do, they don't fail you, because their goal is to admit as many specialists as they can. But if your scoring falls collectively below a 6, then you're given the opportunity to improve your skills and reapply at a later date. And so I'll talk about that in more detail a little bit later. One of the other things that I love about the vetting process is that if someone claims to be a niche specialist, right, say diaphragmatic endo or thoracic endo, you must also submit videos of you performing those specific types of surgeries. And so I mentioned before that it's a double-blinded video submission. So what does that mean? That means that all identifying information for both the patient and the surgeon is removed from the video. So nobody on the evaluating committee is allowed to play favorites if they see a name of a fellow colleague or a doctor that they know or recognize. Nobody knows anything about the person submitting except the work that they are submitting, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. And the other key piece that I talked about is that it is excision experts vetting excision experts. And so what I mean by that, these are doctors who their only focus is doing excision surgery and endometriosis care. How phenomenal is that? No surgeon has any financial ties directly to eye care. So there's no financial persuasion, if you will, or ethical sense of ethics being compromised is what I'm trying to say. The other thing that he noted is that once surgeons are vetted, it's not a one and done. Surgeons continue to be vetted over time. Periodically, I think they said like about every 6 months or so. And if they're initially accepted and vetted with high ratings, but if over time their ratings decline continually or steadily, if efforts to, correct the problem or address the issue go unsuccessful, then that doctor is removed from the platform. Okay. And again, given an opportunity to reapply later. Also, what I love is when they talked about the philosophy of treatment. So they don't want doctors who think that endometriosis can be cured with pregnancy or Lissa. They are not interested in admitting doctors who really don't understand what treatment and care of endometriosis means. So if it's somebody who is still touting those old outdated myths like pregnancy can cure endo, they're not looking to add those types of persons to the platform. But what I do love is that in effort of transparency, when talking about the philosophy of treatment, if doctors do other treatments in addition to excision, they want them to be transparent and actually mark that in their profiles. And so what do I mean? If a doctor does prescribe birth control therapy, or if they do prescribe Lissa or Lupron in part of the hierarchy or part of the arsenal, if they do ablation as well as excision surgery, all of that will be straightforward so that you can make a comprehensive decision. And as you know, different treatment plans work for different people. I am a person who Lupron did not work well for me. I do not recommend the use of Orlissa for myself personally, but there are lots of women who have used it and they have had the success on it, if you will. They know the risks, they know the factors, but where they are in their journey, this is what they're deciding is best for them, and it is perfectly okay. And I think it's great that if you're not ready for excision, but your doctor offers something else, that all of that will be made transparent and you be made aware of that in the information on the doctor on the platform. So something else that was good to know, somebody had asked the question during the webinar, and again, a lot of this is work in progress. It's not like a finished, polished thing. It's definitely a work in progress. I think right now, if you were to go to the site, there's maybe only about 3 or 4 doctors listed currently, but they are in the process of taking applicants from Canada, and also they're looking at what am I trying to say here? At finishing up the process to be able to take international applicants, so applicants from other countries as well, which again, I think is absolutely phenomenal, because a lot of the questions that we get, especially from people in other countries in Africa and different countries over in Europe, is that for as few excision specialists as we have here in the States, there are even fewer in other countries. So I think the fact that they are opening up this platform to vet specialists from everywhere, I think it's absolutely amazing. And I think it's going to give treatment options for women who don't have access. It's going to open up a lifeline for them, literally, by being able to go to the site, find their country, here is the specialist, get the information that they need, and be able to reach out to them. I think that is so wonderful. Another huge thing that the platform is going to be bringing forth is that doctors are also going to be listed in categories. So what does that mean? So I talked a little while ago about niche specialists. So if there's a doctor that specializes in bladder endo or urinary endo, bowel endo, cardiac endo, again, diaphragmatic endo, if you are a fertility specialist, if you specialize in thoracic endo, or you are good at removing endometriomas, you'll be able to click, oh, I have thoracic endo. Let's see who the thoracic specialists are, and be able to go from there. And I think the clarity of that is so amazing because, again, even now in 2020, people still only tend to think about endometriosis as being in the pelvic or reproductive area. And we really need to start changing the narrative around that. And video on that coming later. But yeah, I love that they're going to be organized in categories. Let's see, other information here. Also, there was a point that he wanted to make is that the eye care system is not associated with any Facebook group, any online community or association. It's not like an Agnes list type of deal. So again, no, it's independent, of any of those groups or any of those communities, unlike, some of the groups that I alluded to earlier in the video. Let's see, going through some of my notes here. Oh, other things that will lend to the vetting process is that, I'm sorry, I lost my space in my notes here. Okay, so the other point is that in part of the data gathering for assessing the expertise of these specialists is that in addition to the volume of surgeries, they will have to show their average successful outcomes of their work versus the national average. I think that is going to be a game changer. And so what does all of this mean, with this vetting process and the videos and showing successful outcomes against national average? The idea is that using this platform and using this comprehensive information, the data gathered from that will then be presented to payers in healthcare to encourage them, number one, to begin to pay excision specialists a reasonable amount, for what they're worth. Some of you guys know some of the groups that we're in, some of the doctors talk about, and there's, plenty of data to support that. By comparison, endo specialists really do not get paid their value for this specific work that they do. And so the idea, again, is to use the data to convince payers to provide reasonable financial incentives, right, for surgeons to provide excision first, right? And then hopefully, as this continues, this will then incentivize more surgeons to want to focus in the specialty of excision surgery, thereby opening up and adding more surgeons to the platforms, if that makes sense. So if the payers are incentivized to pay properly, that will incentivize more surgeons to focus on specializing or getting trained or educated to specialize in excision surgery, add them to the platform, and thereby there are more options for us as patients. And why is that important? So I'm going to circle back around to some more stats. So he talked about in the US, again, in the United States, 66.9% of people diagnosed with endo will, again, go on to have surgery in that first year. I mentioned that earlier. Again, an average of 200,000 cases per year, right? Every year we have an average of 200,000 new cases. Multiplied by that 66.9% equals about 134 patients needing surgery every year. 134,000 patients needing surgery every year. Currently, there's only about 100 to 150 estimated endometriosis surgeons in the U.S. Typically, a surgeon's capacity on a yearly basis is about 300 to 500 surgeries per year. The current capacity of excisions for endometriosis is 30 to 75,000 per year. Okay, that's the need, is what we need. 30 to 75,000, the current capacity of excisions. Okay, what does that mean? That means in an ideal world, we would need 300 to 500 surgeons to be performing 300 to 500 surgeries per year. Okay. Clearly, with the number only being at 150 surgeons currently in the U.S., there are not nearly enough surgeons to fulfill this need, right? Which again, let's circle back around why so many women are being put on these palliative surgeries, hormonal treatments, ablation, these, Lupron, all of these things, which are essentially band-aids, and yeah, we do know that excision surgery can come back, it's not the cure, but right now, uh, it's considered the gold standard of treatment. It's like the best that we have right now. So putting a platform together, having a standard to truly produce vetted excision surgeries, it's not only good for the medical community, it's not only good for us as patients, but for medical care as a whole, I feel like, especially in terms, of endometriosis. And I love that what was reiterated over and over and over again is that the goal here is for the patients, right? And with that being said, earlier I talked about being referred to, endocrinologists and different subset specialists, if you will. Well, part of the vetting process, right, is not just can you do excisions, but again, we're looking at this, they're approaching this from a comprehensive standpoint. Do you have a team? Do you have a thoracic surgeon that you can bring on and have with you in the room, a gastrointernalist? Do you have a pelvic floor therapist that you can refer your patient to after surgery? Because we know so many times after surgery, you're like, surgery and done. And a lot of people are left hanging with no provisional next steps in terms of care. So what they're looking for in terms of people being added to this platform is someone with a integrative approach. And the expectation is that the surgeons that are added to the platform that have a minimum of 50% of their practice is specifically focused on endometriosis. I mean, you want somebody dedicated, you want somebody focused. So I think having the caveat that at a minimum of 50% of your focus is strictly dedicated to endometriosis, I think that is absolutely great. It is great. Now, a little while ago, I mentioned the scoring criteria, and that if you score, I think, under a 6, what happens, and so to give a little more detail to that. So after there's this detailed review, if you score below the 6, again, they don't fail you, but what they do is they give you mentorship opportunities. They will pair that surgeon, invite them to connect with a surgeon who has passed the vetting process, to partner with them to up their skill set, to mentor with them via literature and courses that are also being built into the platform. And then, like I said, and about 6 months later, then they'll have an opportunity to show their growth, to show their change in skill, to eventually be added, because the goal is, again, to add as many specialists as is possible to the platform. Also, absolutely no fee, no cost whatsoever in order for the patients to access the database. We know that one of the biggest burdens that a lot of the women face in this journey is finances, right? And so the platform did not want to add to that burden or become cost prohibitive in any way. So there's absolutely no cost whatsoever for patients to utilize and access this platform. And so for the advocates, what is really cool is that they are actually in the process of developing marketing materials and script materials that you can take to the endo community, that you can take to the medical community. You can reach out to your doctors and say, hey, there's this new platform for vetting endometriosis specialists and cataloging them, and I think that you would be a great fit. You can share the information with them. And I would imagine that patients can do that as well. But in the meantime, until that is finalized, you can absolutely go to the website. And as Dr. put it, it is currently in what they call the beta testing phase. It is still in that work in progress. And I think right now there are about 4, maybe 5 specialists currently on the platform. But if you go to the website endo.icarebetter.com, you can find the platform, you can navigate, check out the descriptions and the process, and see how all of that works. And again, share that with your doctor, share that with your community. Now, the main page, icarebetter.com, that is more of an educational component. And so they have like these little short educational videos, things such as getting general anesthesia during surgery, what is laparoscopic surgery. They even have one that talks a little bit about depression during this journey. So again, you've got endo.icarebetter.com, which is the actual database of endosurgeons. And then you've got icarebetter.com, which is the educational companion piece. And so I highly, highly, highly encourage you, if you're a patient, if you are an advocate, go to those pages, bookmark them, go to the Facebook page, like the page, subscribe to the pages, so that as this thing becomes more polished and becomes a finished product, you can stay abreast of all of the recent information and all of the recent developments, so that we know when this thing is, finalized and, I was going to say good to go, but it's kind of good to go now. But as it progresses, I'll say you guys can stay abreast of that, and just checking if there's anything else. Yeah, so just like, subscribe those pages, be on the lookup for the updates to the information. And the phrase that the doctor used in summarizing all of this, which I think summarizes this perfectly as well, is that the whole crux of this, right, is to bring power back to patients. And I really, really feel that that's what this platform is going to do. It's going to bring power back to the patients. I think it's going to revolutionize the standard of care. I think it's going to help to give us a wider voice, a stronger voice. I think it's going to give us more autonomy in having a say in the type of care and treatment that we want, and the type and care of doctor that we want. I think this is going to be so pivotal for that. So what do you guys think? Drop down in the comments and let me know. Does this sound like something that you would be interested in? Does it sound like something that you would use, that you would want your doctor to be a part of as an advocate? Would you recommend this to other people that you work with, to some of the endo patients that you work with, some of the endo patients? Would this have been helpful for you along your endo journey? I know that it definitely would have been for me, because I went through about 5 different doctors before I was able to find my current specialist. So keep an eye open for eye care. I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be phenomenal. I think it's going to be, like I said before, a game changer. So that's it for today, you guys. Let me know what you think. Drop down in the comments, like I said, have a discussion what you think about this. If you are finding me for the very first time, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you guys are notified whenever we upload new content. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, because YouTube is all about the thumbs up, and I always say it helps to increase our channel visibility and bring new viewers to the page so that they can be educated, enlightened, and empowered as well. So that is all I have for you this week, guys. Thank you for hanging around to the end. I know this got a little bit lengthy, but I think the information was very much well worth it. So thanks, you guys, for joining me today so much. I appreciate and love you all. And as always, until next time, be educated, be enlightened, be empowered.